By the time we got onto Shark Tank, so my former partner John and I had a running joke that was, if we had $1 for every time somebody said we should go on Shark Tank, we wouldn't have to go on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Of course, you've thought about it, and SwiftPaws had seen some success, but my biggest reason why I hadn't taken it seriously or considered applying at that time was I didn't think my baby was ready. Because you see, I've watched the show, I'm a fan of the show, and gosh, it's just so scary. You see people go in there and, you know, they get told that their product isn't viable or the niche is too small, and here I am sitting on a very niche product in a very niche market, and I was just like, oh man, they would tear me to shreds. So it's all those fears. When I thought that there was a good chance that I was going to be accepted onto the show, I've seen the show before, I've watched, but I don't have cable TV. So I got a Hulu subscription and I binge watched the previous season as research. And I saw Lori pull out the golden ticket and offer it to somebody. And my brain went, that's really cool. That'll never happen. Just dismissed it completely. It's that fear of it's that constant fear of is it good enough? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Right? That whole internal debate. And so now, the golden ticket for me, and I do wear it. I feel naked without it. So it's gone even beyond just the connection to Lori, which is amazing. But it's also now just a personal reminder to me that I am worth it, that the company is worth it, and that what we're doing is making a change.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our...
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risk you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through, those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Well, welcome back to the Venture Lounge, everybody. This is episode 4, and we're here. Nothing ventured, nothing changed. As always, Matt Helmenthaler on the couch with me, founder of Legacy Angel Network.
Hello.
Matt, tell us who's here with us today, man.
This is my friend Meghan Wolfgram, right? I pronounced the last name right? Wolfgram?
You got it.
Wow, that's a
fabulous last name. Considering the
that's difficult for a guy with a speech impediment. W's are hard. But we met, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah,
5 years ago? More than 5 years, 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been years ago now.
Yeah, 6 years ago, and she is the founder and CEO of an amazing company called SwiftPaws. And when can I just continue on with
yeah, man,
how awesome she is before she starts telling her story?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so Meghan, you can say hi to everyone.
First of all, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
When you told me about sort of the premise behind the podcast, and given sort of the last year of history for SwiftPaws, it's like everybody likes to hear the success story. Mm-hmm. And it's important, I think, also for other people who are in similar shoes, who are trying to start something or who are trying to make a difference in this world, to hear not just the success story. So I'm happy to be here as well. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, cheers.
Cheers, Meghan, from a distance here.
Yeah. Yep, and there it is. So Meghan and I met, right before I started Legacy Angel Network, I would say about 6 months prior, right? Meghan comes in and she's got this. I was at Wild Manta. I was the director of business development or whatever. Really, directors was a nice little title. I was director of one, me. There was no one else, but a big deal. So we're doing our thing at Wild Manta, and Meghan comes in, and she's brilliant girl, well-spoken, super kind, super awesome. And she has this box with her that's like this. And I think there was a drill. Was there a drill in the box?
Yeah, I think at that time it was still one of the initial prototypes.
Yeah.
At that time we had a professional grade machine and we were looking to make the jump into a consumer grade version.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And she came in and just had this big vision. And I remember you guys working with Wild Manta, which is one of the companies that we work with, to get the product to market. But I mean, there was so much. You guys, I mean, you were in there every single day, just plowing away at your idea and honing your craft and figuring it out. And so, when we decided to do this podcast, I was like, man, I've got to make sure our listeners are going to hear her story, because I think it's a phenomenal story. Not just the venture itself, but who you are. And what you brought to the table, and I think because of who you are, and what you bring to the table, it's why your company is seeing the success that it is. So, I would just tell everybody about SwiftPaws. What is SwiftPaws? Where did you start? And even before that, what's your background? Where you're from? All that fun stuff.
I'd be happy to. So, SwiftPaws today is effectively an enrichment brand for pets. So, we fully believe that pets deserve to live their very best lives. And what does that mean? I think in the last decade, you can see this shift in people wanting their dogs to have the best nutrition, not just whatever comes off the shelf. We're really researching. We're looking into what dietary needs do they have, what's going to help them live a healthier, happier life. Same thing holds true for veterinary care. So we've had this interest shift in taking care of our pets like we take care of ourselves, or in a lot of cases better than we would take care of ourselves. Like if Piper, she's wandering around, I'm sure you'll hear her.
Yeah, the mascot's here if you guys
Yeah, I'm sure you'll hear Piper's nails clicking around. Very sweet of you to let her roam your office today. Hi, Pipe. Otherwise, she would think it was very boring if all she had to do was sit here at my feet.
Oh, she's a welcome guest.
She's a free-range dog today.
That's perfect. I love it.
But that's, we've had it with ourselves, like with humans. So I think, okay, what trends with humans are coming for pets? So, people really got into our own well-being, right? Our own nutrition. And you can go down the rabbit hole there. You can go down the rabbit hole with science and medicine as well. And then I think that shifts naturally over to our pets. And so in the last, it's really been in the last decade or two that has truly shifted. If you look at the number of pet food brands in the market, I mean, it has absolutely exploded in that time frame. And for me, the one thing that might be missing from the conversation, what I think SwiftPaws is addressing, hopefully, is that enrichment, so mental and physical exercise and activity, is another piece of that wellness puzzle. So what SwiftPaws is today is an enrichment brand for pets, which basically is a wonderful way of saying that we make dog toys. And right now our hero product is a lure coursing kit, which a lot of people won't know what that is. It's effectively a device that lets you run a fake squirrel around your backyard and your dog gets to chase it. We didn't start there though. So we didn't start with the backyard version, which really now is the hero product. It's what we do the majority of our business selling. And now we're in a wonderful position to be able to branch out and realize even more dreams, which are what other products can we create, can we bring to market that will get not only dogs, but other animals too, their brains and their bodies moving. So that's really our thesis. That's what we care about. But it didn't start that way. So I didn't, I didn't set out going, I want to be the CEO of a pet startup that's going to go to X, Y, and Z place. And at the time where we met, I still had my business partner, John Ritter, who started the business with me when it was just an idea of making some professional grade equipment for dog industry professionals, trainers, doggy daycares. And it really backs up all the way to, I've always been dog crazy, pet crazy, animal crazy. It's just kind of in my DNA. But the year that I graduated from college, I got a degree in economics. I fully thought I was going to go into that field, either into some sort of maybe investment banking, or I really enjoy I really enjoy some like forensic type of accounting stuff. Like there's certain things that my brain likes.
You did time overseas too, right? You were overseas.
I lived in Germany for a year on a scholarship program that wasn't related. So during that year, I interned at a horse farm and was a working student effectively there. It was an amazing opportunity. I still have fantastic connections with people that I met there. But yeah, so that was just prior to wrapping up my degree. And then I graduated in the spring of 2011, had a few opportunities, and I ultimately decided that I wanted to take a break. I thought I've been going full steam both semesters, all the summer for many years. Let's take a break. And the break I wanted was to just like have fun with my dog. So the dog at the time, Pretzel, who I lost him last year. He was 14 and a half. He had an amazing long life. But I got that dog when I was 16 years old. And Pretzel quickly became my sidekick. Like that dog was my life. And so when I graduated from school, I was like, I just want to spend the summer with my dog. And so I was doing dog agility and training and nothing super serious, but just having a good time. And I asked my agility trainer, Marie Davino, who's also local, I said, what other dog sports what else could I do? Like I have this whole summer, I'm enjoying agility. What other things can I do with my dog? And she said, Megan, the most fun I've ever had, is doing lure coursing in upstate New York, which is where she's from. And I was like, I didn't even know what word she was saying. I was like, lure, what are you talking about? So I looked into it. And sure enough, lure as in like a fishing lure. You lure something, right? So lure and then coursing. They're running around a course. Lure coursing is really comes from originally hunting. So coursing of sight hounds for live game. Obviously, that did not hold with the years. That's not, we don't like to course live game anymore. And that in the 70s, it sort of changed into what they call lure coursing, which is a mechanical rabbit instead of a real rabbit. And by the time I discovered it in 2011, it was surprisingly good timing, the same year that the American Kennel Club developed an all-breed version. But at that time, it was still only a sport that sighthounds could compete in. If you didn't have a greyhound, a whippet, an Afghan hound, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, if you didn't have one of a certain list of sighthound breeds, you couldn't compete. And so I discovered that. I was like, wait a minute. Pretzel, who was a miniature pinscher, not a sighthound, he loved chasing stuff. Squirrels, lizards, you name it, he was all over it. Like if I was out there on the agility course and he did that for me and for the food, like the cookies at the end, right? Like that wasn't his jam for himself. He was good at it, but that was due to the treats. If we were out there and a lizard were to run by, like goodbye agility, like I'm chasing.
He's gone. Yeah.
So I thought I have to try it. He has to try it. Like this sounds like so much like chasing after a fake squirrel. Heck yeah! Like I want to give it a go. And at that time, there was nowhere to really do it in the state of Florida. And I found there was a club that was putting on an event in Perry, Georgia in the coming month or something. And I reached out by email and I was like, look, I know I can't sign up. He's not a sighthound. I said, but if I come up there, I'll pay you gladly. Could I try it? Like, I just want to try it. And they wrote me back and they were polite. And I totally get this now. So this is not against them in any way, but they were like, look, like this is a licensed trial. If you come up, if there's room at the end of the day, and if the judge is okay with it, and if the lure operator's okay with it, like maybe. And I couldn't drive 6 hours for a maybe. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't let it go either. And I think that's, I couldn't.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I mean, call it what you want, but honestly, like I'm a little bit stubborn. I really am. Once I grab onto something, I don't like to let it go. Yeah. And that ultimately led to me looking into buying equipment. It was like $4,000. And it was largely pieced together. Like we're talking like a starter motor out of a Ford engine and a deep cycle marine battery hooked together, and you couldn't even buy it all in the same. Like you'd had to buy one piece from here, one piece from there.
So it was like eBay or Craigslist kind of situation.
Yeah.
Or
So
what?
there still are really amazing companies that. So lure coursing's been around since the 70s, and there's a few companies that make that equipment really well. And in fact, SwiftPaws, we don't compete with that type of equipment. It's so powerful. I mean, when you're running sight hounds, you're running thousands of yards sometimes over massive fields, and it requires a very strong motor, and you need a lot of power to do that at the speed that they can run at. So that equipment, very expensive, very well done. They've built it well, but it's a little overkill for a miniature pinscher. So.
Right.
and probably for a little quarter-acre lot in Florida.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting a race car and you're driving around town in it. So I wasn't going to afford the equipment, and then ultimately thought, well, why don't we make one? First mistake. How hard can it be? And I think a lot of businesses have been started by somebody saying, "Oh, how hard can that be?" And so ultimately, my dad, who's a pretty handy guy, he helped me make a crude but working machine, and it really worked. And Pretzel loved it. Oh. And by the end of that summer, I was going to buckle down and go look for a real job. And as a last hurrah, a friend of mine who had a horse farm in Malhapar let me use her front pasture, and I invited my agility friends out. And my former partner at the time, we hadn't gotten together yet, but I know that he's a music guy. And so I said, hey, you've got speakers, like, would you be a DJ for this event? So he came out, and he was like, just had some great music playing. We made pulled pork. Everybody came out with their dogs. We ended up having, I think, about 60 people show up.
Wow.
It was magical.
That's
this was in October of 2011. And it was like, wow, what a way to end the summer. Megan's going to start putting in applications, or maybe I even already had at that point, like, you can't be a recent college grad for more than a year, right? And then you're no longer recent. And it was at that event that people just, they loved it. Their dogs loved it. It was fun. And they said, when are we doing this again? This is amazing. When's the next one?
Very cool.
And I was like, well, wait a minute. That wasn't the plan. So that led to then my then partner and I getting together to say, okay, well, what if we made a few more of these for other people who might want to do events, not for sight hounds specifically, but for all breeds of dog, because every dog, most dogs, have a natural instinct to chase, that natural prey drive. And I like to say that with SwiftPaws, with what we do, it channels that natural prey drive into play drive. And so then the dog goes, oh, it's a game. And now you're having fun, and now you're interacting together. So that magic from that first event is really what then drove the entire start of the business.
So, Megan, the way that you articulated, like, where you guys were researching where you fit into the market, the need for, this kind of next level, or just optimizing, play and those kind of things for your dog.
Yeah.
That's really the first time I've heard someone, like, explain it like that. Were there other people, like, in your circle or feedback you got as you were talking about the SwiftPaws idea, that, like, were other people kind of thinking the same way? Do you hear people talking about, like, wanting to kind of elevate their dog's play life, exercise, those kind of things, and just not having a solution? Or
now we do. Now we hear that. We'll have people who are searching for, gosh, I just adopted a dog during COVID and they have a little too much energy, and how do I burn off this energy? But at the time, I mean, it all happened so organically. Like, if I would have sat down and said, after school, I want to start a company, and I want to do market research, and I want to, but the way it all happened was so organic, just from me wanting to try it, building a machine, my friends enjoying it. And honestly, we didn't, so John and I, SwiftPaws didn't get formed until the following year, so like July of 2012. What did happen, and it still exists today, a little community-oriented event called Lure Course Brevard, because everybody who went to that event said, we want to do it again.
That's cool.
So we now just run, for once a month, barring schedule conflicts, we just hold a community event where you can come out, bring your dog, have a good time. And that's really where it started. Awesome. And then people going, I need this. Like, I need access to this more than once a month. I'd love this in my backyard. And then other people going, I'm a dog trainer. I'd love to have one. That led to then saying, okay, maybe there's a market for making some of what my dad and I had already made. Maybe we can make 10 more, 20 more and sell them. That was the initial thought.
See, what I love about that too is that, and you know, you were engaged in community, and by being engaged in community and being for community, you discovered kind of like what your community, like what you needed, but also like what your community needed, and then like said, okay, let's just kind of put one foot in front of the other and.
It was a secret, right?
Like
I was living.
Venture. It's a beautiful way to start.
Yeah, I was living in a world where now my dog had access to this, and once a month I saw how the impact it had on everybody else's dogs, and then it was like, oh, this is I'm living in a world that doesn't exist anywhere else. I'm living in that is really what drove me to go, I think dogs everywhere would enjoy this.
You created community in Brevard. Cheers to that.
Didn't create it, but we helped give it an outlet for their dog's energy.
Well, I mean, you all those people came together, and the moment they said, I want to do this again, that's community.
Yeah, we brought it together in that form, which was amazing, which is really amazing.
And you have that art side of it, like the relational side of it, but on top of that, you're obviously well researched just on like what these animals need.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that domesticated animals and pets like are being neglected on now, or like, you know what I mean? Is there any research you've seen on that side where it's solving an issue? Like, you know,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think America, the United States, I love that I'm from here. I love how progressive the U.S. is in so many ways on so many topics. We're really pushing the needle forward. And at the same time, and this is changing. And I right, nothing ventured, nothing changed. What's changing and what I love about being a part of the change is that in the U.S. for many, many years, it was like the only country that I'm aware of where it was fully acceptable to wake up in the morning, take your dog for a quick walk so they could relieve themselves, wave goodbye as they're staring at you with those puppy dog eyes. You're going into the office. Maybe you let them out at lunchtime. And then when you come home and the kids are home, you might go for a 10-minute walk. And that's it. And that was acceptable level of engagement and physical activity. And then you would wonder why, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but I'm saying that nobody would go, oh, that's all you're doing for your dog. Like, it was an acceptable way to have a pet. And that mentality, I mean, when I lived in Germany, oh, she's just going to steal the show. I don't know if you can see her on the camera, but Piper is a ham.
Piper's hanging out on the carpet.
She's
full sprawl. Love it.
But I thought I was a very active dog owner. And then when I lived in Germany, the mentality is if you're not taking your dog for multiple hour-long, usually off-leash, giving them space to run and play, and if you can't do it, you're hiring somebody to go for not a 10-minute walk. We're talking a 30, 40 hour-long walk to give your dog what is, to them, the bare minimum.
Right.
I thought, whoa, that's a shift. And I thought, wow, I'm really giving my dog the best life. And I thought, wait a minute. There are days where my dog doesn't get out for 2 hours.
Wow.
And incredible. So in the U.S., it's that mentality that, dogs are a part of the family, but at the same time, we haven't always been really aware that if they don't get that type of stimulation, they're more likely to chew up your shoes. They're more likely to have separation anxiety. We've got vets who are being asked for anxiety medication for dogs because there's many reasons and causes, but sometimes it's boiled down to, every time we leave, they cry and bark until we come back. And those are real world challenges. And I think that enrichment and giving dogs mental and physical stimulation so they're physically satisfied and a little tuckered out and also mentally satisfied is a really good piece of that. How do we give them that whole life so that they're not worried or anxious when they're stuck inside with nothing to do, right?
Yeah, so fabulous answer. I imagine, especially for like larger animals like Piper, I mean, they just have like you're saying, a drive to move and hunt and like all kinds of things, you know what I mean, that you have to attend to.
Yeah, if she doesn't get out and then I let her out, it's like the zoomies, right? I think everybody's seen that. Or like you give your dog a bath, and what do they do after the bath? They start tearing around your living room. So They have energy.
See, that's really good advice for pet owners, but it's also great advice for, people with small children.
Yeah, you
can't, Aubrey.
You can't just lock your kid in your room for.
You
It doesn't work.
You can't do that.
It's less socially acceptable, right?
Have you thought about a lure system for children, little children?
Oh yeah.
So you could put some. Yeah, that would be.
So we do not recommend SwiftPaws for small children. However, if your dog,
I'm sure they find it entertaining.
if your
though. I'm
dog
almost
is
certain they think
chasing
it
the
is.
device and the kid is chasing the dog, we have people who have sent us adorable videos of the dog running around after SwiftPaws and the kid running around after the dog, and then everybody just gets tired and takes a nap afterwards.
Connor and
It's
Aubrey
perfect.
had this big empty living room in their house, so I'm thinking we get one of these lure systems.
The
We
new
stick it in
market.
your house,
Right.
Then we have to get you a dog too.
You've just found a use for that front room.
But you need to adopt the dog. All right,
Okay.
so we get you adopt the dog. You turn
I
on the
know.
machine, watch the kids run them around. They're in bed by 7.
I know
I
a
love
few
it.
great
Yeah.
organizations. When you're ready to adopt a dog, I'll hook you up.
The pressure's on now.
Megan,
Yeah.
when we are ready to adopt a dog, we're coming to you for
You
sure.
let me know.
Yeah, all right.
I will get
seem
you in touch
the most
with.
well researched.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just tell
But-
me what your likes are. We'll find the dog.
I'm trying to get them to adopt a dog now. I like how he phrased it. When we are ready to adopt a dog.
But
I still feel like that's a little committed.
I do love, Megan, how much thought and research goes behind your product. It's not just something that it's not just entertainment. There's
Yeah.
real function to it. That's incredible.
It's functional, and then also, so by the time we started thinking about making a version for people's backyards, John, my former partner, and I, we had worked for close to 6 years, and we had built a really good commercial grade product, and just, again, good timing, right? So I believe that success is a marriage of a lot of things, hard work, right? You got to have the right elements, but there's also an element that you can't make happen, and that's good timing or a little bit of luck, right? Those things are an extra lift along the way. And for SwiftPaws, the good timing was organizations like the American Kennel Club and the United Kennel Club, they actually started introducing all breed coursing sports, all breed lure coursing sports, where not just sight hounds, but any dog, even the dog you adopted from a shelter, could now participate. And that was the same year that we founded SwiftPaws, just by happenstance. So my interest in the sport coincided with their opening it up to all breeds. And now the equipment that did such a great job of running really big, fast courses was a little bit too fast for, say, a Pekingese. So it was really challenging to run for all breeds when you didn't have equipment that was tailored for it. So the equipment that we made, the professional grade equipment, was perfect for running all sizes of dog. Now, it couldn't run as big of a course, but the all-breed sport, one of the fastest growing in the country, is Fast Cat. It's a 100-yard dash, so you only have to run 100 yards and then the return. And so what our machine does is it's variable speed like a gas pedal. So you could run it at, 6 miles an hour for a very small or slower dog, or you could run it at 60 miles an hour. So that really, we found our fit in all breed lure coursing sports. Yeah.
Well, to kind of cross over, because I'm as you're talking, I keep stop it, Siri. When I met you, right? So you guys essentially, and just correct me if I'm wrong. So you had started gathering some people. You had created kind of a commercial, more robust thing, and there was a moment when you guys decided you were going to make a switch over into creating a SwiftPaws, a viable company that's exporting a product that's you're doing all of these things. I mean, it's a big shift from being a community company to being a company that people worldwide know about you now. And
Yeah.
so what were some of the challenges that you faced both personally and professionally as you so many people are going to be watching this that are like, should I venture? Should I do this? And I think sometimes when people get a little kickback, or they get a no, or they
Right.
there's like this inherent thing where some people, they're on the roller coaster and they're like, the ride stops and they get up and They get off, they throw up, and they never go back on
Like
a roller
it's
coaster
not worth
again.
going around a second
And
time.
then there's other
Yeah.
people who are like, I want to love this roller coaster, so I'm going to get back on. I'm going to keep going until I don't throw up anymore.
Right.
And so, what were some of those challenges for you? And how did you, and how are you? Because it's ongoing.
Oh, sure.
You know, how are you overcoming those challenges? And are there things you have to remind yourself? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I want to hear that story.
It was a pivot. So we had made the pivot point was we have made roughly 100 professional grade machines and sold them. And we had hand built those. And I mean, the hours that John put in his garage, right? Before we had a small office. So the hours spent developing, designing, making, fine-tuning, selling, supporting those 100 professional grade machines. This was a company that had never paid either one of us a salary, didn't have any employees. We blood, sweat, and tears ourselves because it was a project that we felt the world had use for. So it was, okay, there's a need for these in the world. So meanwhile, we were at different stages in our lives. So John had effectively come out of retirement to join me in this project. And then I was working other jobs. I mean, I had to support myself too.
Right.
I was working part-time at a friend's vet clinic. And I thank them to this day because without that consistency and income, I wouldn't have been able to pour myself into SwiftPaws. And I was doing anything I could. I was pet sitting. So it's a weird stage of a business. Like if you're not going to go the traditional, here's my business plan, give me money. It was very bootstrapped. The two of us were the only people who had ever put any money into the company. And we had made 100 really nice pro-grade machines for all breed coursing. And then it was eating me alive. We were going around the country. Part of our business model was there's all these doggy events, right? There's one literally coming up this weekend, but anywhere in the country, there'll be Bark in the Parks, and they're hosted by a variety of places, and oftentimes they benefit a shelter or a rescue, really cool events. The whole community comes out. We would go. And oftentimes they would even cover our expenses. Whoever was hosting the event would say, we want this activity here.
That's cool.
You know, we'll pay your way. You don't have to pay a vendor fee. Like, we want you here. So we would we'd be break even showing up. And then we'd say, hey, you know what? Spend $10, let your dog give it a try. We'll donate half to the whatever shelter or rescue this event is benefiting. What a cool model. And we would run thousands of dogs. And by the time 6 or 7 years had elapsed, we had run tens of thousands of dogs. These are people who showed up to this event, had no idea that this even existed. And then their dog became a star because he took off after that fake squirrel, and boy, did he have the time of his life. And on their way out of the field, because I would be the person running it, right? John and I would switch off. He'd run it sometimes, I'd run it sometimes. So when you're the person controlling that fake squirrel, you hear the people talking. So on their way out, they would turn to whoever they were with and they'd go, God, we need one of these in our backyard. Not we want one, not how cool was that, not let's do this again next year if this is here. No, we need one of these in our backyard. And I heard that literally tens of thousands of times. And so at that point, I thought, this is growing. The sports are growing. There's a growing need on the sports side. But also, this is getting more visibility to the regular dog owner too. So I thought, if we don't do this, if we don't make a version that is affordable for people's backyards, somebody's going to.
Yeah.
And why not a company that cares so deeply about the dogs and their well-being, and like, why not us? And so that was it. So John and I, the tipping point was in early 2017, we were using silicone tooling, which has an active lifespan. So we were nearing the end of that tooling's lifespan. We were going to have to reinvest to retool. And we thought, okay, we have so much money in the bank. We could either spend it to retool and make another 100 of our pro-grade machines. Or, and this is scary because it was the only income we had coming in, we could stop making pro-grade machines completely, start a waiting list, hope we make them again someday, and then take the money that's in the bank and work on making a backyard version. Boy, was that scary. So I think that was like mid-2017 when we made that decision. And then I think we were looking at a number of different places, resources that could help. And that was, so Wild Manta really helped us with some of that initial, design work and how do you take something that you've built that's this big and scale it down into something that requires engineering and resources and things that we didn't have between the two of us. Like we could go out into a garage and whittle away at some wood and saw and cut and screw together a professional grade machine. But when now you're talking about like true injection molding and electronics and circuit boards, which our equipment to that point didn't have. So we decided to do that and quickly ran out of money, realized that it was worth pursuing, so put in more money. And then I really felt strongly that we had enough of an audience at these events. So about 2 years prior to that, I was like fed up with hearing people say how badly they needed one. So if I heard it, I would say, we're gonna do this someday. If you write down your email, I had all these sheets of paper with like scribbled email addresses. I said, if we really want it, we're gonna try to do it. The 2 years prior to doing it, by the way. If we ever do it, if you write your email address down, I'll let you know if and when it happens. So for 2 years, if I heard somebody say it at an event, so I had amassed, now I had given myself the work of then transcribing all of those email addresses. But I thought, we could probably get the last gap of funding we need. So we had worked together and we had come up with a decent, I would say, working prototype. But that doesn't count the money it's going to cost to create the tooling. It doesn't count the final money it's going to take to like do the testing and final tweaks and getting the software to where it needs to be. And so we were still like on that journey, on that product development journey, we were still, that last 20% is probably one of the biggest gullies, right, for the whole process. And so we thought, okay, well, how do we get there? And I thought, well, what about the customers? So we did a Kickstarter campaign. That was in April of 2018.
I remember.
Yeah. And I
Were you calling it SwiftPaws at the time, by the way? Okay.
Yeah, they had rebranded and all of this stuff, and then you took that list.
Yeah.
Right?
So the company name was always SwiftPaws, but
I thought
like,
maybe Pretzel Paws would have been appropriate at the start. You know what I mean?
It seems appropriate.
well, so Pretzel.
I would have liked that.
So this is one of my most endearing things about the company, and it's something that Tim of Wild Manta did for us, is that he asked me one day if I could get a picture and image of Pretzel's paw print. And then as a surprise, he took his paw print and he integrated it into the plastic on the bottom of the unit.
Oh, cool.
And it was so cool then. It was like, how cool is that? That's awesome. And now it's like a legacy.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how that has transformed too.
Yeah.
So Pretzel's Paws came into it in a different way, a very meaningful way. But yeah, so it was always called SwiftPaws, but we started working with another, I could talk about local resources all day. During that time, we also started working with Jeff Lindstrom of Echo Digital Solutions, and he still to this day is like my right-hand man with all things website marketing. I mean, he was in the trenches with me as we figured out how to get on Amazon. And so during this time as well, we sort of rebranded, we redid the website. We had some local resources also help with the logo. And so just prior to the Kickstarter, but the name was the same. We do this Kickstarter campaign. I sent out this email on day one of the Kickstarter. I'm like, so you might not remember who we are. I could probably dig up the email. It was like, you're getting this email because you put your name on a list at some event somewhere in the country where you tried the SwiftPaws lure course. And if you're getting this email, it's because you expressed interest in a backyard version. And now we have a Kickstarter campaign. We're bringing it to life. And some of those people had given me their email as many as 3 years prior.
Was anybody like, hey, remembered you? Or did they remember that interaction?
Yeah, so I thought our goal for the Kickstarter was $20,000. It was going to run for 30 days. I was pretty confident we could hit the goal, right? And nobody starts a Kickstarter campaign thinking, I don't think I'm going to make my goal. So we were pretty confident we could do that, but I figured it would take an awful lot of work. And so that email went out on day one, minute zero. And we actually ended up hitting our goal in the first 24 hours because of the response largely from that email.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we went on to do just over $73,000 on that campaign.
Yeah.
That's like really intuitive like scrappy startup stuff that you're walking around and just asking for people's consent and emails like right there in person, and then
So
amazing.
So I didn't think of a Kickstarter then when I was getting emails, but I was like, if I ever do this, I'll let you know.
Right.
Right? And that's where people say, oh, I want to do a Kickstarter campaign. And I'm like, they're like, oh, how long did you work on it? I was like, well, actively 6 months. It took us about 6 months to really build out the campaign. But if I hadn't been collecting emails at events for 3 years, would it have had the same impact? Maybe not.
It would not.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Megan, if you still have that email, you should send it to us and we'll post it on the screen.
I will dig it up. It's in an old MailChimp account somewhere. I'll try to find it.
100%. You might even want to print it and just like frame that junk. That's really, really cool.
Those are the things you look back on and you're like, that was, in hindsight, that was a really good move.
Yeah.
At the time, you don't know how much of an impact that'll have for your future trajectory.
Well, it's certainly like it's a moment, right? It's you had a thought and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. And what I've seen in the startup world in my limited experience. I've only been at it for 5 years or so, but what I've seen is that every single day you have these choices, and you're faced with choice A, choice B, choice C, whatever it is, but you have to be intuitive.
Yeah.
You have to have a little bit of wisdom. You have to think about tomorrow as well, and kind of look forward. And so, I do think that entrepreneurs have this little gene in them that kind of makes them see the world a little differently.
You mean like the panic of failure?
Yes.
It's something that you do. You have to be forward looking, but
Yeah.
you can't stop looking at right now.
Exactly.
You have to almost
doing
have.
both.
Yeah. You have to have something inside of you that's like always worrying a little bit about what you're not thinking of.
Exactly.
And it's hard. I mean, I think that with founders, especially because I have the great fortune, we work also, we headquarter out of Groundswell Startups. I get to be around other founders a lot.
Groundswell's great. They're awesome.
an amazing resource.
Yep.
And when imposter syndrome is so real with startup founders, where you think like, I shouldn't be in the position I'm in, or like feeling really disassociated from the success you've had because you've seen all the failure. And so on that topic, right? So then there was never one point where I felt at least that, we've made it. I can just kick up my heels and now we get to coast. I mean, I constantly feel like I need to be pushing and reaching and going for more. So the Kickstarter, great success. That felt so good. And then it took about that much more in additional funding to make the first round. Yep. So it's like, okay, as successful as it was, so why did we pick 20,000 when it was going to take over 100? And I think that's, goal setting is really important. So for us, what was Kickstarter? It wasn't the hope that we would get people to fund everything. It was, for us, primarily market validation. Everything we've put into it to this point, what's the minimum number that's going to prove to us at the time, John and myself, that this is worth getting to the finish line? So if we put this out there into the world and it doesn't raise at least $20,000, nobody really wants it. Right? If we haven't done a compelling enough job, and if this product isn't compelling enough to where at least people want, the number was about 350. If at least 350 people don't want this enough to back it, we should probably cut our losses.
Yeah.
And so I like that mentality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they're doing something like a Kickstarter, they're like, how much do I want? Instead of how much do I need to validate my own project? So where we ended up with was, if we can raise at least 20, we know the project's worth completing. And the rest was really icing on the cake. And then we pre-sold, we started doing pre-orders, and we managed to make the first round, which was 1,000 SwiftPaws home kits. So we went from, in 6 or 7 years, having made 100 machines, to in the first production of SwiftPaws Home making 1,000. Now that's a pivot.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the girl who had to learn how to solder wiring harnesses to put into those 1,000.
That's cool. I like that you're contrasting that like slow, painful initial growth stage that was necessary to get to that accelerated growth. I think it's pretty easy, probably. I don't know if when you were doing the work in the garage, and lots of good things happen in the garage. Weezer started in the garage, right?
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of? I mean, obviously, you had a promising career path and path forward. And I'm sure there's lots of friends and family that believed in you, but was there any, I don't know if Megan's having a quarter life crisis here or what, what I mean? Just abandoning economics and
Good question. I am so lucky. I have the most supportive parents in the world.
Awesome.
What parents wouldn't think that my daughter has just gone off with the deep end, right? I mean, I went to school at DePaul University, really good school. I graduated. I had an interview with a firm in Chicago that I was going to be able to take. I had been accepted to teach for America, which I was so close to choosing that. And then the start date was a few days after graduation. I was like, gosh, do I really want to dive straight into another thing? And okay, so I think my parents were okay with me taking the summer off. But then, I think back and I'm like, if I was in their shoes, how can they are so supportive. They have never once. And I mean, I'm the crazy kid who graduated high school and went, I want to go to Germany for a year and play with horses because of the scholarship, right? And they've never, ever been anything but positive. Even when, for example, with SwiftPaws in the early days, there were times where my parents had to help me cover expenses. There were times when, and they've just always been there for me. And they've never, what doubt would it have planted in my mind if I went to my parents and said, I'm thinking about doing this, and they were like not even saying anything, but if their reaction had been,
yep,
but it wasn't. And gosh, kudos to them. I don't think I could do it. I'm not sure I could, because you care about your kid, you want them to succeed, and you see them balancing what is really a sure, pretty positive, good career with very uncertain, unstable, and you think, okay, well, maybe they didn't know. I mean, my parents ran their own business for years. They kind of know what it can be like. And so I have their full vote of confidence.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's wild. I'm very lucky for that.
Did you have any friends from college that were just like, you sure? Or was it just everybody was just like?
So I did it so slowly. SwiftPaws was a pet project, pun intended, for such a long time that by the time the Kickstarter happened, it was like, oh, it's successful. Good for you, Megan. That's amazing what you're doing. But prior to that, if I would have told anybody that I'm putting off, if I would have laid it out in those terms, I'm sure people would have been like, are you sure you want to do, are you sure that's a good call? But I didn't. And I think so many people with the entrepreneurs, a lot of advice is quit the day job. Put yourself out, do it, risk everything. And I ended up doing that. I mean, there is a point where you have to give it your all, but my path wasn't like that. My path was from 2011 until 2018 to work other jobs, to have other income, to support myself. And every year I would touch base with myself and go, is this still worth pursuing? Should I still be on this path? Because there was no income. There was no check from SwiftPaws. It was really a passion project. I was lucky to have the support of my business partner as well. So John, I mean, if he hadn't been in the position in life that he was in, could he have supported it for that long as well?
Right.
Probably not. So here we had this balance where I was really young, really ambitious, really energetic, a lot of energy. And then I had John, who had seen businesses come and go, and he is in a different point in life, and so we balanced each other really well too.
Very cool.
So I've been lucky to have nothing but support, and also grew slow, and we grew slow in the beginning, and that was important. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with going fast, and now we're at a phase where we need to grow, and we're turning up everything, but it's taken a decade to get here.
Some resilience there, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And Matt, you talked about before there, and even just part of the legacy process when you're vetting founders and companies. like there's the qualitative component of like we need to see the financials and what's the business plan forward and what's the product look like and all the logistics. There's also that quantitative or non-qualitative component, that just like feeling you get about founders. And meeting people like you, Megan, I can see how when Tim Reynolds was meeting you, when Matt was meeting you at Manta, and your parents vote of confidence in you, you're just well-researched, well-articulated, and passionate about what you're doing. You can just get a feeling like even if there's not a completely clear path forward of where SwiftPaws goes from here, you're going to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
We had you here to the lounge a few months back, talking about your company, and I think I told you this and you laughed about it, but I was thinking it as one of my partners came up to me and said it. You're talking to the room, and one of my partners comes up to me and says, "Hey Matt, there's a couple of our investment companies we would love to put her in to actually run the companies." And I'm not going to say which companies they were talking about, but I get it. I absolutely get it, because you do have this. We call it, I mean, here for our own little brand, the legacy factor, right?
Yeah.
But it's that little thing you see in someone where you're just like, I want to be around this person and help them any way that I can, because I just. They're great, but B, it's because they make people around them better. Yeah. And you have that quality. So I think it's super rad. So kudos to you. Kudos to your amazing parents, for sure.
It really I'm a product of everything that has influenced me in my life. And I also feel such a commitment to making sure that credit gets dispersed, as it's due, because it's not just one person. I think a lot of, if a company's doing well, people think that, wow, the CEO is great. If the company's doing poorly, oh man, that CEO is not doing a good job. I think too much weight is really placed on that person, and I get it. But there was a point in time where SwiftPaws became more than just myself, and SwiftPaws really is a product of everything that's been put into it. So if we fast forward quickly. There were a lot of resources that got us to launching SwiftPaws Home. The first 1,000, they weren't the best. It was really minimum viable product, which is important. And you can't not launch something for fear of it not being perfect. But one thing we've done really well, it's always been important to me, and I'm thankful that I had resources that felt the same, like John and like other people who, when we did improve, we unequivocally took care of those original customers. Yeah. The remotes were terrible. We improved the remote. We replaced all the ones for the people who were our earliest backers, That's right? Awesome. You take care of your own. Yeah. And if you have an early adopter that is excited about your business and they're willing, we were late delivering on the Kickstarter campaign because it took us longer than we thought to get everything in place. And those people just hung in there with us, like they're as much in the journey of this company as we were. So we take care of them. And then moving forward, John, my former partner, came to me in early 2019 and said, I don't know if you see the writing on the wall like I see, but I kind of came out of retirement to start this with you, and now it's going to be a full-time job for the foreseeable future, and I'm not looking to do that ride again. And he had the foresight, and he cared about the company and me enough. And at the time, I was like, what are you talking about? This is great. This is a great ride. Everything's fine. We're about to deliver the first 1,000 products. Why are you bringing this up now? What are you talking about? But he really did have the foresight there. And it took us the better part of that year. But, we eventually came, thank goodness it's hard enough to part ways with a business partner without there being massive conflict. And we've had our differences too, but at the end of the day, he cared enough to come to me and say, we need to figure this out. Because if we don't, then it's going to come to a head. And so by the end of that year, he had exited. I had effectively bought him out of his portion of the company. And then, you go up and down. We had shipped all of the first round. We ran out of stock completely. We sold out that was 2019, in July of 2019. Sold out, nothing left. No product for the holidays. I didn't even know when we were going to get product again. We're not making pro-grade. We haven't made pro-grade products since 2017. And I'm having to buy out a partner. How scary is that? How scary is that? Yeah. there's some money in the bank, but it's just barely enough to like buy materials for the next round. And so that's when I got connected again with Groundswell and some of the mentor resources there who sat down with John and myself and talked about how he could exit without putting the company in position that it would have struggle moving forward. And then after we had that change, I realized, oh, I've taken everything. I don't have anything to give. I've taken everything. I've gone all in. And now I don't have enough to push it forward on my own. So then that's what led to my very first raise. And I was so again, good timing. I closed on my first round of real funding that wasn't self-funded in second week of March 2020, right before everything came crashing down. I know deals that didn't go through because they were just a week behind me.
Oh, wow.
And that's, again, like how grateful can I be for that timing?
Oh.
And then we got back in stock. We were out of stock almost a year. We got back in stock and we had materials delays because of COVID. So we got back in stock in June of 2020. So from July of 19 to June of 2020, SwiftPaws was sold out of product. We didn't have anything to sell.
Wow.
That recent, and it's crazy because you think about all the successes. It sounds like such a success story, She wanted to try it with her dog. She built one with the help of her dad. She got a partner. They sold some pro-grade machines. They got connected with some good resources. They had a Kickstarter campaign. They raised a bunch of money. And then she bought out the business partner, raised a first round of money, and then has had this amazing trajectory. But the dips in between are so easy to like average out over time.
Right.
So that was a really difficult time. And then we were very fortunate to close on the funding. And I hired my first employee in January of 2020 before I was even completely secured with funding. Very scary moves. And then 2021 was an amazing year because we had product all year long. 2020 was the first year that we had product for a holiday season. We thought it would sell well during the holidays. We didn't know. We'd never been there. And then 2021, it just was a great year. We got approached by a producer on Shark Tank in August. We were pitching. I was standing in front of the sharks on Shark Tank in September of 2021 going, is this real life? It aired in April. Yep. But even so, there's always like with every amazing meteoric point that I could just, it would just fill up my cup every day if I thought about all the successes that we've had. We also have to get through the valleys.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your Shark Tank experience. Like, what was that like behind the scenes, behind production? I mean,
it doesn't feel real. None of it feels real. So
I also didn't realize, like, we have some friends in Ohio Doc Spartan was the name of the company, Dale Wallace, but they had a Shark Tank run as well, which was, so they were telling us, like, I didn't realize until they told us that the producers just approach people, like they kind of field companies and,
there's only one way to get on the show, and that's to apply. There's two ways to get to an application. The first way is you go onto the website, you find the application, you fill it out, and they get a lot of applications. And the other way is if somebody, from the show identifies a company, reaches out and says, have you ever considered applying? Fortunately and unfortunately, because I think it should be this way, that doesn't necessarily improve your chances of getting on the show. But what it means is that they are actively, it's a made-for-TV show. And they are actively looking for stories that they think would be a good fit.
Right.
And so it benefits them to identify companies that they think might be good. Then if that company wants to apply and the application is as strong as they look from the outset, she'll...
Piper's like, there's just not enough attention to me right now.
You were the best thing that's ever happened to the planet Earth.
She only does this to men, by the way. And I think it's because guys are the only people who pick her up. She thinks she's a little girl. Come here, Piper.
That's the good stuff.
I kind of have a tandem question for both you guys, where you've been down the road together, you've been here, but both at Manta and you standing in front of the investors here. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the process there? How are you guys figuring out the?
That's a great point. So there's different processes, right? So there's like product development, and then there's how do you fund what you want to do for your company. So resources like Wild Manta are great for taking concept, which for us we knew there's a few things we knew really well, which has always been good for any of our resources. So we know the requirements. We knew what this product would have to do at a minimum to be able to be something that people would want for their backyard. It had to be able to run at least this length. It had to be able to go at least this fast. It had to. So I think one thing that's challenging for people who work in product development as a resource, as an engineer, as one of those resources, is that they'll have clients who don't necessarily even fully know their requirements. So we came in with a very small but set requirement list. It was like, this is what it absolutely has to do, everything else. So we didn't have, I'm not I don't have a great eye for design. So I was like, it'd be great if it looked cool. But I didn't really care about the color of the product or the shape of it. I just it needed to function. I knew what it needed to do. And so a resource like Wild Manta or like a design firm, I think what they do really well is they start to put some boundaries in place. Okay, you're going to have to work within the constraints of what injection molding can do. You're going to have to work within the constraints of, this design might be really amazing, but is that going to be too expensive when it comes time to produce these in the thousands? And so they really did a beautiful job of helping us get to that working prototype that we could launch to the world on Kickstarter. And then after the whole transition and we sold those first 1,000 and I was now moving forward with the company on my own, then it became clear that the company couldn't just self-fund. So we had enough money to maybe buy the next round of materials, but then you get in this cycle of we're going to buy 1,000 sets of materials, we're going to assemble them, we're going to sell them, and then we're going to buy the next set. And you get this cycle, and I think every hardware product company feels this, where you're either inventory heavy and cash poor, or you have the opposite problem. You're sold out, and you have cash, but you can't get more inventory fast enough. And until you're truly larger and more profitable, it's hard to get traditional methods of funding, right? No bank is going to give you a line of credit if you don't have profit. And what startup is going to have enough profit to fund a big line of credit?
Right.
It's just not going to happen. And for us, we're a direct-to-consumer brand primarily. It's not like I'm going to get a big PO that's not where we're at right now. So I can't even go and get like a line of credit against something like that. So the fundraising side, for SwiftPaws, our first round we did a convertible note on. And actually, at the time, I think LAN was either just forming or like in its infancy.
It was. We were. I think we had been around for about a year, and we were still gathering new members and stuff. And I think so. The investment that you got, I think I sat you down at a table with like over at what used to be formerly known as Matt's Casbah. It's not there anymore. Yeah. We sat down there, and everybody at the table was super impressed. And one of those investors invested in the company
on my round. So the initial round was, we have angel investors, right? Individuals. There's also angel groups, and then there's like what I would consider more institutional. And so the lead from that round put in half of that round, and then really the rest of that round was made up of individuals and angels, and there were a few other like smaller institutional investors, but it's like dominoes, right? So I really, with the help of people like Matt and resources from Groundswell, who made introductions to individual angel investors who were willing to say, yeah, I'll support you. I'll write a check. So I had raised almost half of the total that I wanted when I was introduced to what ended up being my lead. And if I didn't already have the support and the commitment from so many people locally, I'm not sure they would have taken me as seriously. Right. But they knew it was like almost like social proof, almost like a vote of confidence that I had been able to get so many people locally in my community who know me and who have seen the company get to this point, that tipped them over the edge of saying, yeah, we'll come in, we'll give you half the round, we'll give you the rest of the money. And that was amazing. And so then that got us all the way to the point of getting onto Shark Tank. Yeah.
I mean, her story and her journey are absolutely amazing. For me, and going in and just having I've had little moments in her timeline. I haven't been there through the whole piece of the timeline, but for me, they've been really meaningful moments because again, I met Meghan and John back when they came into Wild Manta. So Tim is a brilliant guy that I absolutely trust. Something that Tim was trying to do, and I don't even Meghan know if you know this. He didn't want to build products for companies that he didn't think could succeed. I mean, he wanted to see that we could create companies in this community that were building a product, they were exporting that product, importing a dollar, creating jobs. And if he didn't think it was a good idea, if he did not think it could succeed, I watched him turn away very large checks because he thought it was a bad idea. And so when he started working with them, I trust his judgment. And of course, when you meet Meghan, you're like, well, of course you do, right? So, but it was checking all the boxes. And then with the design work, I know who did her design work. I know who created her initial messaging and logo. And so all of these pieces from the beginning stages of what became like the second version of what they were doing, I got to see. And not only see, but have a direct connect with the people that were helping her do it. And that gives a community first investor like myself and our group a tremendous amount of confidence when these dollars are coming into this amazing local company with this amazing local founder, and those dollars are strengthening the foundation of her own company, but also some of those dollars are trickling down into the companies that are helping her. And I mean, from an economic perspective, this is like a dream. Her company is an absolute dream for Brevard County. And people often never think of it like we said in the beginning. A lot of people jump in the room for your success, but they don't realize the impact your company is having on Brevard County today on the 13th, Friday the 13th. But positive thing on Friday the 13th, SwiftPaws is making a huge impact in our community each and every single day. And it's some of the impact will be felt long after you have your exit or whatever happens with the company.
I hope so.
No. I mean, it absolutely will. You're creating and have created a legacy brand, and you've done it in your community, with your community, and you've done it for your community.
Yeah.
So to me, like, this is she and her company. This is everything that groups like us, Legacy Angel Network, that we want to invest in. I mean, it's the right people, it's the right product, the right processes, and the right potential.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pitch you, but
I appreciate that.
but it's. I mean, when you're talking about like the whole journey, if my network can fund her, great. If I can't fund her, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to put her in positions for success. Not that she needs me, but
and there's more to it than strictly the amount of money raised.
Right.
So for me too, it's been as impactful having the strategic side, so the mentors and the resources that can help me make the company either more efficient or go to the next stage of we're going to scale up manufacturing. So it's business acumen, it's knowledge. And I've always been I was born and raised in Brevard County, right? Like I'm very, very much am a local testament to this area, and I love it. So many people can't wait to leave, and I've been elsewhere, and I love it here. So it's always been important to me that SwiftPaws does as much in our own backyards as we can. And so...
And you're a real tangible, I mean, the real tangible evidence that all of that infrastructure exists here.
It does. From the funding side to the resources side. And we have a beautiful network of available resources here in Brevard County. So by the time we got onto Shark Tank, so we had a video go viral in the summertime. It wasn't our video. It was of our product. A customer bought one on Amazon and like posted a quick video on TikTok of their dog like running around, and it said like, yeah, your dog needs one or something like that. And that video ended up doing over like 20 million views. It was by far the biggest video that we've identified. And I think that's how the resource from Shark Tank discovered us. They didn't admit as much, but I'm like, okay, a few weeks after that happens, you reach out. So they reached out and just basically...
Intern on TikTok. You know how that goes.
To TikTok.
Thank you,
person
TikTok.
who posted on TikTok. Yeah.
So they reached out and said, have you ever thought of applying? And I was like, well, yeah. Like so John, my former partner, John, and I had a running joke that was, if we had $1 for every time somebody said we should go on Shark Tank, we wouldn't have to go on Shark Tank. And so what's really funny there is, we're still amicable. So post going on Shark Tank, I made him a T-shirt, and it says that on the front. If I had $1, I wouldn't have to go on. And on the back, it says, also my company went on Shark Tank. So that was fun. That was fun to get together with him and give him that.
That's great.
But you think at that time, of course, you've thought about it, and SwiftPaws had seen some success. But my biggest reason why I hadn't taken it seriously or considered applying at that time was I didn't think my baby was ready. Because you see, I've watched the show. I'm a fan of the show, and gosh, it's just so scary. You see people go in there and, they get told that their product isn't viable or the niche is too small. And here I am sitting on a very niche product in a very niche market. And I was just like, oh man, they would tear me to shreds. So it's all those fears, all those anxieties about it's not what I've built isn't good enough. Not enough people are going to like it. And so I guess I hadn't stopped to think about how far we'd come. And I was still living in a world where SwiftPaws was very, very, very infant company. And we grew so quickly in that period of time that I guess I really didn't stop to think, wait, we really are at a size now that this is viable. And so from the time that person reached out, because this was at the very end of a cycle for them for producing for season 13, to the time I was standing there in front of the sharks was like 6 weeks. It was very fast. Most people will apply, like you can apply now, but it's for next season. And filming won't start until I think they do a segment in July and a segment in September. And so most people right now are applying. And so most people get a very long time to go through it all. And I feel really fortunate that it was that fast because I didn't have time to freak out about it. So, and then because of some COVID restrictions, normally you'd be flown out. It takes place in LA at the Sony Picture Studios lot. Normally you'd fly out, you'd spend a couple of days, you'd get to practice on like a separate set a little bit. You'd fine tune stuff, make sure everything's working. And then, the day of you go and you do your real pitch in front of the sharks. But this case, we flew out there and you fly in the evening, had to do a COVID test, right? You're not allowed to leave the hotel after that because you don't want to expose yourself to anything. And the next morning, you wake up really early and you have to do another test before you can. So I appreciate all the care that was gone into it.
It would have been bad form if you killed a shark because you had.
You don't want to do that.
You don't want to
I mean, you want to catch a shark, but you don't. Yeah. So you go through all the protocol, but I was in and out in like less than 48 hours.
Wow.
That was.
Yeah, it probably felt really aggressive and like, is this going to work?
Very surreal. So I remember flying in on the evening of, the first day, pitching to the sharks at 8 a.m. the following morning, and then I was flying out the morning after that. And so there's really that moment where you go, did it even happen? Like it was such a whirlwind. And then, of course, we didn't air until April. So you don't air for another 6 months or something.
But you do have proof that it happened. You wear it around your neck.
Yeah. So, well, unfortunately, I did forget that this morning. That's okay.
Lori She forgot it. I'm just kidding.
We're all human. But what it is, and I actually do wear it. So what's funny is you'll see me like doing this is because normally I'll touch it like absentmindedly. So we ended up getting Lori's golden ticket, and I seriously have it on a chain, and I seriously wear it around my neck. And I wanted to be very presentable, so I showered last night and it came off, and then it didn't go back on this morning. But that's okay. Next time.
Things get real here.
We could put
on Venture Lounge podcast.
I wanted to shower.
I love it. No, showering's good.
It's a good human thing to do. It's important.
I have this new brand of, it's called Salt and Stone.
Okay.
By Leon Bridges.
Oh.
Do you know Leon Bridges? Yeah, Leon Bridges. Yeah. So I have a little bit of a man.
They're breaking out. They're breaking out of their industry into.
Yeah, it smells fantastic.
Awesome.
That Connor said so anyway.
So Lori's golden ticket is an interesting thing in Shark Tank, and so of course when I thought that there was a good chance that I was going to be accepted onto the show, I've seen the show before, I've watched, but I don't have cable TV. So I got a Hulu subscription and I binge watched the previous season as research. And I saw Lori pull out the golden ticket and offer it to somebody. And my brain went, that's really cool. That'll never happen. Just dismissed it completely. I think the reason was Lori tends to go for products that are very ubiquitous. So she can see that they're extremely widely accepted, and also typically products that are less expensive. So like
that little happy face sponge that she
the Scrub Daddy. So products that are like under $50 or definitely under $100. And so it wasn't because I didn't believe in my product, but I just thought in my research, not the best fit for what I thought Lori might be looking to identify as products. So I'd seen the golden ticket, but I thought I just completely ignored that would even be a potential. And I ended up, again, let's talk about good timing. Because I applied so late and because of all the timing there, I was taping for the show on the very last day of taping for the entire season 13. It was a really crazy vibe. They're like a family there. Everybody kind of works on the show every season, and then they don't work for and then they get back together. So it was like a going away party of sorts for the whole crew, and the vibe was it was amazing. It was electric. Everybody's kind of bittersweet.
How was the food?
The food. I mean,
is there any, I always see, was the food good? Did they?
So good? COVID, right? There's no buffet.
Oh yeah, that's my bad. That's my bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
So, but you get your own little, and because of that, you couldn't do as much socializing. So you have your own little trailer, which they had a beautiful little basket and stuff. So they took really good care of us, but it's not the experience that you would have had pre-COVID. So you get on to set, and I was the first one of the day. I was happy because I knew what time I was going on. Otherwise, some people are in there for 30 minutes, some people in there for 2 hours. And you know the order that you're supposed to go, but you don't know, if you're the next one up, could be any moment. So that would have been nerve-wracking. So I was number one. I knew 8 a.m. I'm going to be pitching to the Sharks, which was a blessing. And I think that for me, the real whirlwind of it all was that you see the show, you envision what it will be like, and then you get there and it's real. It's real. You go down the hallway, they take you through a little tour before you go in. So you go down the hallway, you get to at least see the set. So we walk out there in a little group of who's pitching that day, and it's all my SwiftPaws stuff set up because I'm the first one out. And they're I wonder who's going first. And there's the water and the screens with the sharks swimming by, and there's actually water in those pools, and then the big door slides open, and that's all real. None of that is done in post editing. That is all a legitimate set. Behind the sharks, behind that, it's all blacked out. Everybody, the crew and stuff is all wearing black. There's black curtains, so it all disappears, and you're just there with the sharks, and that's it. So you basically forget that there's cameras, for good or for bad, and you just have that experience, which feels so surreal.
That seems like that would be a little helpful.
It's good. Yeah. I think it's good because you're less likely, I think, to get stage fright. Yeah. But it is also very overwhelming because you're wow, it's a weird moment to see something on TV and then be in it. You're this is crazy. I'm here and it looks exactly like it looks on TV. And so you have to walk out there. You have to stand there in an awkward, like 60-second pause while they get their cameras adjusted. And then the producer says, begin, and you give your pitch, which is the only part that's scripted. Like, you know your pitch inside and out. You write it, you rehearse it. You could do it in your sleep. You could do it forwards, backwards, that first segment where you're telling your pitch and your company, and then all bets are off. It's like, okay, sharks, go with the Q&A.
Did you practice your pitch in front of your parents or in front of some friends, or did you just like rock it in the mirror in your bedroom? How did you practice your pitch?
Nonstop. I practiced my pitch nonstop. I had people, I would book out a conference room at Groundswell. If she gets too forward, you just let her know that she
You want to
can.
say something into the mic? You want to talk to everybody?
You're a good girl, Pipe. You can sit.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's the sweetest dog in the world. I love her so much.
A better view than
So
me.
Piper came with me and to LA, and she gave a live demonstration, and the sharks loved it. But yeah, I was practicing that pitch. It was on repeat in my head, and it's only like 90 seconds, so that was a very fast loop. I was grabbing people and pulling them into a conference room and delivering the pitch. And, you kind of have to keep it a secret that you're going on to the show. So, like, only certain people could know at that time, and I'm sure they got tired of hearing me do the pitch over and over. And that's one of the only, there's a few unspoken rules on Shark Tank, and one of the only unspoken rules is that, Piper, she's not a licker, so she won't lick you, but she will sniff you, and apparently she likes the beard.
Pipe.
I am wearing some beard oil. Okay, all right. There we go.
It's the salt and stone, Matt.
It's the salt and stone. Thank you, Leon Bridges.
You're good. That's it. You should send that to him as send him that as a clip, and then he'll. And Piper is very cheap for her modeling fees. She works for Kibble.
Yeah, we could both make out pretty good on this. Yeah.
No, so that, and one of the only unspoken rules on Shark Tank, because there's a few things that people guess. They're like, is it really real? I truly believe that the sharks have no idea who is coming on, because I was about 30 minutes into the Q&A when I realized how much there was to unpack about my company and how much they didn't. They just had you don't know.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So they don't have any clue who's coming into the tank. And at the same time too, there's no cut, action, redo that, re-say that, nothing. It is one shot, continuous, no stopping, no starting.
Wow.
So one of the only unspoken rules is that you get to deliver your pitch. So you get to go in, you get to give your 90-second pitch. The sharks aren't supposed to start asking you questions until you're finished. Like, they let you deliver your pitch. And then the gloves come off and they can ask you whatever they want about your company. And so I ended up being in there for almost an hour and a half. It didn't feel like that. When I came out, I asked one of the producers, that felt like it went by so fast. It was like 20 minutes. They're like, girl, you were in there for almost an hour. But time flies, right? Yeah. And it was a blur. And then when it airs, it's also extremely surreal because then you've sat on the secret for half of a year. You haven't told anybody. And my investors knew, my team knew, there's certain people who can know. And then even them, I didn't tell a soul, not even my boyfriend, who was a little upset about that fact. He's like, you could have told me. I didn't tell anybody about the golden ticket. And here's why. It's because I was like, what happens if they edit that out? I don't know why my brain thought that way, but my brain was like, what if they don't show the golden ticket?
Wow,
it's just that, it's that fear of it's that constant fear of is it good enough? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Right? That whole internal debate. So I kept the golden ticket a secret. But what I thought was amazing, when I went into Shark Tank, all I knew was who my panel would be. And I learned that a few days before going out there. I knew I was going to have the OG panel. I was going to have Mark and then Damon and then Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and then Lori and then Robert.
Wow.
So when I found out who my panel was going to be, I did research. And I thought my two best opportunities was going to be either Damon or Robert. Damon, because he's a dog owner. He's a dog dad. And he gets the branding side of stuff. And Robert, because not only is he a dog parent, but he has Malinois. I was like, talk about a high energy dog that needs SwiftPaws. And so I thought, he's going to get it. He's going to understand the need. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, I would love, love, love to work with Lori. But my thought was, it's going to be too niche for her. I thought, I hope she's going to love me and what I'm doing, and I'm sure she's going to be very complimentary, but I thought there's no way that she's going to see just how big I think this opportunity is. And I must have done something right, but by the time I got to the point where I got the offer, I was preparing myself to walk away with no offer. Is at that point, right? So, and some of it, we talk about community and wanting to build SwiftPaws here in Brevard County. I made that clear. I shared the whole story. I shared the story about my former partner and buying him out and the ups and the downs. I mean, it's 5 very savvy investors who know exactly what to ask to flesh out the good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, you only see a few minutes on TV, but they get really deep really quickly. And so I think Kevin was the first to go out maybe, and he was basically said, if I was, kudos to you, but if I was going to come into this business, I would be farming it all out overseas and changing it up. And he's like, it seems like that's not what you want to do. And so I'm not the right partner for you. And so probably even to the detriment of maybe losing a potential offer is how much I care about continuing to grow here and having an impact here. Could I possibly get this cheaper if I made it entirely overseas? Maybe. But if I can do it here and I can grow here and it still makes business sense, that's what I want to be doing. Yeah. So I never ignore a resource or a potential. Like, we get some materials from overseas. There's certain things that actually I can't find. Hey, if anybody knows of a motor manufacturer in the US that'll make a tiny little RC motor for me, you let me know. But so I have no problem using international resources. And some of my best partnerships, like with EMCA, the company that I do my plastics with, it's a German company. Our plastics come from Bosnia. I'm so proud of that fact. But to the degree that I can, I will have as much of it here as I can. Yeah. And so, Piper, she is, your rug cool. is not comfortable enough, apparently.
She's kind of fluffing it up a little bit.
It's all good.
I really do apologize to her because I should have brought her bed. She really only likes laying down in her bed. And I know this, and as it was raining this morning, and I'm so sorry. Yeah, here I am talking about giving your dog their best life, and I didn't bring her bed. Come here. You want to lay down up here?
Megan, or Matt, you go ahead.
Actually, you go ahead.
Sure thing, brother. Megan, like Shark Tank was, and you're talking about it in context of it being just a small part of your journey. So much legwork done beforehand, and all the local work that even made that big production event possible. Was that like a perception changing event though for the people around you? You know what I mean? Do you feel like people took more interest, customers, just like that legitimacy factor?
I think it felt really good to be some entity, some like brand that my community can be proud of too. So that felt really like I didn't know that it was a bucket list item of mine to see my dog's face on a billboard, but when it happened,
that's awesome.
It was really, really cool. So yeah, that kind of thing, like seeing the impact and then seeing people celebrate the fact that here's somebody from our town who's had this, that felt really good. So yeah, by the time it got down to brass tacks on Shark Tank, 3 of them had gone out. And they all were very complimentary. But I thought, okay, I've got 3 out, 2 to go. I tried to get Damon back in. He was like not taking the bait. And then Mark was just so kind. Everybody, even Mr. Wonderful, they make him out to be the bad guy, Mr. Wonderful, but so kind, so kind.
He didn't say you're dead to me.
He didn't. He didn't tell me to take it out behind the barn and shoot it. Like he
didn't say you're a little cockroach that's gonna get squashed.
No. Okay. In fact,
those are all. I didn't realize those were all things that have been said before.
He's the heel for sure. Like he plays the bad guy.
Yeah.
But I will say they all saw how much I cared. They saw that instantly.
That's obvious.
They all saw that, and I think there was a level of respect there that, I'm sure I've seen people get torn up on that show, but you don't know what else has gone on. You don't know the other hour that they spent talking about it. So,
but I mean, your care though, it doesn't feel manufactured because it's not manufactured.
Right.
Like it's not like it's it's not like you were there putting your best foot forward to get them to like, you know, that really is who you are.
No, it was genuine. And my reason for being there was genuine. So I really thought that if first of all, the one thing I really wanted was for America to see how much this dog loves what I made.
Yeah.
I was like, if nothing else, if they all tell me like, this is too niche, like good for what you've accomplished, but we're not going to invest. Yeah. I was prepared for that. And I thought at least the country will get to see my dog having a wildly good time, and they might get one too for their dog.
It's a win no matter
that
what.
So that was my thing. But then second to that, I was like, but if any single one of the sharks has interest enough to make me an offer, I'm going to do everything in my power to make a deal with them, because I felt that any single one of them could bring value.
Yep.
Any single one of them. Sure. So that was my secondary thing, right? I had my favorites, but those were the two things I went in there thinking. One, even if they don't see it for them as an investment, I hope America gets to see how much she loves it. And two, if any single one of them are willing to work with me, they can bring me value. And if any one of them see it as something they want to work with. So ultimately, Mark was super, super nice. He said, you're the perfect entrepreneur who just needs a little bit of help. I could have started crying right then. Yeah. I mean, I cried way more on that show than they showed on TV, but that's beside the point. So he's saying such nice things. And then he's like, it's just not for me. So then he goes out. I think he was the third one to go out. And at that point, now I'm starting to panic. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm having to all right, brace yourself. You might not get an investment. You might not even get an offer here. And then Robert started considering, do I want to make her an offer? And he was trying to I think he was trying to calculate what he wanted to offer me. And that's when Lori jumped in. And she started saying the kindest, most amazing things I've ever heard in my life. And in that moment, I thought, she's buttering me up to let me down.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, she's going to say, you're amazing. The product's amazing. The stuff is great. And then she's going to be like, it's a little too niche for me. It's a little too expensive of a product, but good. And so when she pulls out the golden ticket, which I had seen and I knew what it meant, it means that she offers you exactly what you went into the tank asking for. She cares. She only does it once a season. She doesn't do it every season. It's not, the other sharks don't have a golden ticket. It's just her thing. In fact, they think it's kind of silly. So they all roll their eyes and they go, oh, I have a golden pen that you can sign the contract with. But I think it's really what a way to carve out her own thing on that show.
Yeah,
too.
That's cool.
Right? So for her, the golden ticket means I'm offering you, I'm not even going to negotiate. I'm going to give you just what you've asked for because that's how much I believe in what you're doing. So when she pulls out the golden ticket, I probably should have been smiling. But instead, I was like a deer in the headlights because I couldn't believe it. I instantly recognized it for what it was, and I couldn't believe it. And then I start sobbing, and I tell people about Pretzel's paw prints, and we hug, and it was very emotional. But yeah, what a ride.
That was emotional.
And then I woke up that night in the middle of the night in LA, completely jet lagged, less than 24 hours from having flown out there. And I'm like, did that even happen? But I had the golden ticket. So she gave it to me. And that's what, for the next 6 months, every time I thought, and there's no promise that you're going to air, by the way. There's a lot of people who do tape for the show and then their episode doesn't air. And so I was like, oh, God, I hope so. But you don't know. And you don't know when. We got 3 weeks notice that we were going to air. And so, so every time I would go, I hid it because I didn't want anybody to find it. I would go and be pull it out, be no, that was real. That really happened. And so now, the golden ticket for me, and I do wear it, I feel naked without it. The golden ticket for me is a really nice reminder of my worth and what I'm doing and that it does bring value and meaning. So it's gone even beyond just the connection to Lori, which is amazing, but it's also now just a personal reminder to me that I am worth it, that the company is worth it, and that what we're doing is making a change and a difference.
And the way you communicate it, Megan, I mean, that's all obvious. It feels, it feels just hearing it, the whole thing for the first time, really cool.
So I joke about this often. She's probably going to get tired of hearing it, but I keep kind of poking. Not keep poking. I'm poking gently and mostly in public, and that she now has this contact with Lori, and I'm like, hook a brother up with that number for appropriate reasons, professional reasons. But I mean, yeah. So Just saying, I'm going to throw it out there again. I'm going to throw it out there.
It's
into
on the record,
universe.
all right.
I know someone who knows.
That's it. It's not such a secret desire of mine that I want to get her here. I want to bring, at some point, I would love to bring Lori down for, something. Now, I never expected her. And then people are like, well, how's it been since then? And it's like, I never expected her to roll up her sleeves and come and help me pack boxes, and obviously, like, that's not her role. And I think people think of investment a little funny. People think people are like, oh, now that you have a deal with Lori, like, everything's changed, right? Instantly, your costs have gone down and your manufacturing has changed. And like, you don't do it in a day. Like,
Right.
Rome wasn't built in a day. This stuff
Right.
doesn't happen overnight. What does happen is you have another very interested party rooting for your success. So like the day before we aired on Shark Tank, she gave me a call. We sat down simultaneously looking at my website, and she just literally page by page wanted to make sure that we were going to put our best foot forward when it got a ton of traffic, which it did. And then when I have strategic questions, I can send it over. And the crazy thing is think of all the deals that she or any of the sharks have done and how many companies they must have in their portfolio. And SwiftPaws, as much as it means the world to me, is not her biggest investment. And so the fact that I can send them an email, like I needed a reference, I needed a referral. I'm like, was applying to some like industry prize or something last year. And I wrote, her, and I said, hey, would you be able to write me a recommendation? Kind of sheepishly, like, is this too much of an ask, right? And she got back to me within the hour.
Wow.
And said
Wow.
she'd be happy to, and then
That's
wrote me the
rad.
most amazing recommendation,
That's
right?
rad.
So that kind of support, where it's not, and yes, I have access to her team, and but it's not like, here's my assistant if you need anything. I can truly have that input at that level.
I mean, clearly, she's got a lot of class, and she cares for people. I think people, they see people on TV and they think that, well, they're up here and then you're down here, we're these little plebes or whatever. But it seems like everyone there treated you with respect and kindness, and even afterwards, after the cameras aren't rolling.
Yes.
That's where it counts.
Where it really matters. And
Where it really matters.
It is amazing because you think about it, any one of those sharks, like, do they really need to make investments?
Right.
Do they really, like, for themselves, for their no. So then why are they doing it? And I think it's because, and I think that's why the show continues to have so much success, because you see that they care about the story.
Yeah.
They're not just looking for what's going to have the wildest return. It's beyond that. It's sort of eclipsed. Traditional investment thesis, right, is how can I deploy every dollar to ensure that it's going to get as much back as possible. Investors will talk about their dollars as soldiers, and they want them to go out to war and bring home prisoners, right? That's really true for a lot of investing in the stock market, right? Would you invest in something that was going to go down? Like, no, that's not the point. But I think at the level that Shark Tank is, they're investing as much in something that they know that they can help affect the success of, that they believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you heard it here. Lori, she wants you to come to Venture Lounge and do a podcast with us and Megan together. So, Megan, thank you for that little push.
Hey, if you can make that happen, I'll be so impressed.
I can only make this happen if you share this with her in an email.
That's it.
But yeah, anyway.
Hey, Matt is not being subtle about it. I like
I'm
it.
so selfish. I'm so selfish.
Hey, nothing ventured.
Yeah,
Nothing
no.
changed.
Megan, tell us about just like current state of company. What are you excited about and doing now?
Yeah, so it's, gosh, I can't believe we're already in 2023. I was making jokes since like the summer of last year that 2022 was over, and now it really is over. It's like, oh my God, that went by so fast. But we did just over $1.5 million in revenue last year.
Come on.
Wow, congrats.
And it feels so good. And we are really growing beyond just the hero products. So we introduced like a manual version, our flirt pole and our critter packs last year, and those have done well. And just in time for Christmas, we launched a really cool dog bed, like a sort of like a travel, like a canvas waterproof bed, and then also a cooling gel mat. So like I'm looking forward to the summer, because now we have something after your dog is like running around and Now they're hot and tired. They have something to go lay down on that's going to be cooling. So we are growing our catalog. We're growing our team. We are looking forward to developing some new products. We've got some really cool new projects. One of which I can share. Like, this is the big takeaway from Shark Tank for customers was like, you're going to bring the price down. And it's true. It is our goal to bring our pricing down on the hero products. So we're working on a version that will be more affordable. And the intent is to launch that this year. So that's where we're at. And it feels so good to be in a place where I get to see this brand realizing dreams that I wouldn't have dreamed.
That's cool.
5 years ago.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Oh, and Piper is just nosing.
I'm a friend too now. Yeah,
She's
yeah.
so rad.
She's your dog now.
So I would like to bring this up too, and if you don't know the answer to it, it's perfectly fine. But we're growing the base here of people watching this, and a lot of investors are going to be watching this. I know that you've toyed around with the idea of maybe doing another round in the future. What is that looking like? And do you know if it's going to happen? And then
I think any founder always has to be considering like how they're going to finance like their company. And so for like SEC reasons, I can't talk about like the status of fundraising publicly.
Right.
But from that perspective, I would say because we're a company that's been built locally, and because I have gotten so much more than just dollars from Brevard County. I mean, I have gotten amazing resources on the mentorship side from business perspective, personally, the supplier side, and resource from not only engineering and development, but assembly. Like, we partner with Brevard Achievement Center. They're the world's best assembly partner for us. And they are here in Brevard County. How amazing is that? So if there's anybody who has any interest in that, whatever that might be, whether that's on the side of, hey, maybe it would be something that I'd look at investing in, or maybe I have something that I could lend to a company, I strongly suggest reaching out. I'm always available.
Yep.
And likewise, there's a lot of other companies like SwiftPaws here. So maybe you're not into dogs. I don't know anybody in the world who wouldn't love dogs just as much as I would, but maybe your passion lies elsewhere. I meet companies every day at Groundswell that I'm like, wow, they're doing that, and they're doing that here.
Evil people who have no soul.
The people who don't like dogs, yeah.
People with no soul.
It's all about the dogs for me. All about the dogs for me. No, but that's it. And I would really encourage, anybody who's in a position to lend whatever that may be. Whether that may be investment dollar, whether that may be an hour of mentorship, whether that may be some of their expertise, or if they could be a supplier or a partner or something like that. It really doesn't hurt to reach out, because I've looked elsewhere. And sometimes I have actually been looking actively for a resource somewhere else, and then it ended up being in my backyard. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And she just settled. Now as we're wrapping up, huh?
So I have a question, and I don't know if this is the final question, because I don't know if Connor's like storing up more questions. But
No, man, go for it. Wrap us up.
But do you have like this little piece of advice you give yourself, or that you give others, like do you have like this little internal compass thing that like just I live by this thing, and it helps me kind of like press on? Is there something that you kind of live by, something that you kind of like, that you could like just tell us?
It's unfortunately a wandering thought, but if you're in a position and there's nothing more driving you than the promise of success, right? I think a lot of people think about startups and entrepreneurship and you could make a bunch of money. That's not going to keep you going when times get really, really rough. Just the thought, because in those times when it's the toughest, the potential is also shrinking, right? So if you think you're about to fail, the possibility of having a massive exit sometime down the road is like shriveling up before your very eyes. So I would say that for myself, it's always like, okay, why do I keep pushing? I mean, I can pick out moments in time where it's been really, really hard, or like I was like by myself at the warehouse at 11 p.m. cutting up a box, trying to reconfigure it because I had to get it right, because we had to order them, because all this pressure and all this stress, and me, I'm emotional, so I'm crying. And it's those places, like what makes you push on. And I think for anybody, you have to find something that you're really willing to push for, even when it feels like you might not personally gain from the outcome. So for me, for SwiftPaws, that is, it doesn't really owe me anything. This company owes me nothing. It has given me the most amazing journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah, and
That's how it should be.
Absolutely. And just the mission behind your product, like your general interest in seeing pets thrive is, I think, something that just transcends the products themselves, you know?
It does. And I don't have the expectation that this had better result in a massive check or it's not worth doing. It's I want to do it because I believe in what I'm doing. And I think that, you know, do you have to have exactly that mentality? No, you also have to be a smart business person. I can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm trying to build something sustainable here and something that is worthwhile. And if there's a big positive outcome someday, that will be icing on the cake. But until then, I'm just going to build it to be everything I think it can be. And I'm going to work as hard when it is having a rough time as when it's having success. And I think that's the deciding factor, because you can't decide how hard you're going to try based on how much in that moment you think it's going to be ultimately successful. Yeah,
that's awesome. And thank you for that, because there as more and more folks jump on to watch this podcast and listen to this podcast, and you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. There are those moments, those dark little moments where you're like, man, is it going to be okay? Like, you know, and you start to realize, okay, now I've had some employees and I got people counting on me. Oh, and I had this success. Am I going to be able to? And there's always these question marks and question marks and question marks. So that inner drive is to getting down to your why. Doesn't matter the what'll happen. That I can't, to an extent, you can't fully control what will happen, but you can control your why.
Yeah.
I think that why, that moral compass, and that your reason, that's what people are passionate about. That's what drives you. And quite frankly, that's probably why so many people love you and have been around you and have just been supporting you, because your why is right. It's good.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for that. I just want to encourage any of our watchers, if you need or want some pet enrichment products, man, go to SwiftPaws.com, get it done. Amazing people, amazing staff, amazing founder, amazing products. And thank you so much for just, Meghan, sharing your story with us and with all of our viewers.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you both for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Vivid story, too. I felt like I was in LA getting COVID tested, like with Piper by my side. I mean, that was really, really awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Piper, thanks for being here.
All right, cheers. Thanks so much, Meghan.
Thanks, Meghan. Yeah,
Thank you.
Meghan, everybody.